Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of the OmniTalk Spotlight Series, the series that highlights the people, the technologies, and the companies that are coming together to shape the future of retail. I'm one of your co-hosts, Ann Mazinga.
And I'm Chris Walton.
And today we have a very, very special guest with us, 2022 OmniStar and now Vice President of Amazon Web Services Applications, the always wonderful Dilip Kumar. Dilip, welcome to OmniTalk, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. That's a great introduction. Great to see you
both.
Yes,
I'd say so. I'd say so, returning OmniStar.
Yeah, he's back, Ann. He's back.
Yeah.
He came back. I could not be more excited. So Dilip, tell us, so your job title, so we interviewed you last year. It must have been a couple months, maybe in a month before you got a new job. So tell the audience how your job's changed and what your new job is all about.
I am now in AWS. I lead AWS applications. I spent about 19 years in the consumer business, and I moved to AWS last August. And the AWS application group is a collection of services that's all catered towards the non-developer, like business users. They could be in operations, they could be in marketing, they could be in call centers. So some of the services that we own or my teams own are part of AWS applications is like Amazon Connect, which is our call center in the cloud. We launched its service on supply chains called AWS Supply Chain, which just recently launched in April. We have AWS Clean Rooms and Identity Resolution, which is geared towards advertising, marketing workloads. And then we have our end user computing group, which is basically allowing people to be able to run their applications no matter where they are. So giving them access to their virtual desktop, either in a persistent way or in an ephemeral way, using workspaces or AppStream. And then we also have the ones that you're all very familiar with, which is our identity and checkout services. So Amazon One, Just Walk Out, and the Dash Card.
So Dub, I'm curious, like that's a lot of stuff, right? I mean, you're looking that's a lot of things you just mentioned. How do you decide what makes the list and what doesn't when you have that much under your purview?
Yeah, it's actually it's a good question. The way that we sort of think about all of these businesses is this something that can be differentiated? Is our offering and it can it be differentiated? And is it large enough from a market segment size for us to go after? And more importantly, do we have the experience, either internally or acquired? So if you think about Amazon Connect, we had a lot of experience building call centers and like building customer service for Amazon itself. So like externalizing that was a very natural step. Similar thing for our supply chain. We've had a lot of experience running supply chain across a variety of things. In fact, one of my first jobs at Amazon was leading Amazon's forecasting and supply chain work. And the complexity is mind-boggling. So being able to offer that as an external service is a very natural thing. And one of the things that all of these services tend to wrap is they not only have the domain expertise and some amount of experience that we're bringing to bear, but also they bundle together machine learning and AI in these so that people don't necessarily have to roll their own or being able to sort of compose this off of various different infrastructure services. So there's the tenet that we use in applications is 80% of customers should be able to get benefit out of this right out of the box. Back in the day, there used to be this thing that if you're a package service, you only get a vanilla flavor or you get this ultimate customization of services. Right. But for us, the happy medium is somewhere in between where the vast majority of customers should be able to get value out of these services out of the box. But if you have a large set of developers in place and your business needs are very different, we also provide tons of APIs that allows you to customize each of these things to your specific needs. So, Amazon Connect you can get tons of value out of the box, but we also have APIs that allows you to customize it for your needs. So, Intuit's business needs are very different than Capital One's, which are very different than, Delta's. So their ability to be able to make these changes along with getting, out of the box value is something that has really resonated with them. Plus, we're sort of bringing to bear our own experience in ML and AI, our own experience in running this for, Amazon. Right. All of those things are super helpful when we have these conversations with customers.
Yeah, I mean, Dilip, we've obviously taken note of some of the ways that you've packaged those services and that you're allowing other retailers to apply those. Most notably, I think the Just Walk Out application with apparel and fan gear happening this year at Lumen Field. Can you tell us a little bit more about what went into that, the technologies that you were bringing together with your unique expertise and experience coming from Amazon?
Yeah. So when we started Just Walk Out and we went to stadiums, the first natural thing that we went after is this notion of like food and beverage and how do you sort of eliminate lines there. And we did several of those. And then when you sort of look around the stadium, you find other venues. The most natural place where lines tend to get built up is fan merch. It's again, it has a lot of the same characteristics that food and beverage has, like people going either before the game or in between periods to be able to go get certain things. You really don't want to miss out on the action. You want to get in and out very quickly. And so we thought about ways in which we could use elements of Just Walk Out. But then the item selection part of it is also, it's one of the most interesting and challenging problems that exist. And computer vision and apparel, determining apparel in different sizes and prices is difficult. But this is where I think, the combination of RFID and Just Walk Out allows us to be able to get the item identification done using RFID, but also allows us to be able to know who is taking what item and charging them in the same way that we do it for Just Walk Out. So being able to marry these two things allowed us to be able to bring a very known experience in the stadium now to customers, where you can enter using Amazon One or a credit card. You can go pick up the apparel, and when you just walk out, we know exactly who to charge for that particular item. And it's we started off in Lumen Field. It resonated really well with customers. And then we did it in Texas Rangers as well, for the World Series game. And we'll see more of these in the future. I mean, it's a very natural extension and application for it.
Yeah, Dilip, I mean, explain to us a little bit, because we haven't been there yet, but like what size of store are we talking about, and how does this continue to evolve beyond maybe like a stadium scenario? Like, will we be able to see this happening in a somewhat larger footprint?
Yeah, I think the size of the store is kind of an interesting thing. Sometimes there is a certain amount of, rigidity, if you will. I want to say rigidity, but I use that word carefully because, when you talk about food and beverage, you usually associate it with coolers and other kinds of things. So like there's a certain amount of work that needs to go in order to be able to lay out a store. You just can't put a cooler off of itself. It requires a little bit of planning. Apparel and merch, on the other hand, in the way that we've sort of done it, allows for an immense amount of flexibility, because you could just take racks of clothing and you could move it left, right. You could do anything that you want with the store. So the size of the store is largely dependent on what the operator wants to be able to do. And, because you think about stadiums, you think about not just ball games that are happening there, but you can think about music festivals. You can think about other events that are happening.
Taylor Swift concerts. You got to be ready for the Beyonce and Taylor Swift.
If there's a place for a line, production thing, that is it. I mean, I don't think that there's any other greater application of it. But that is one of the benefits of this, is that most of the technology is either in the clothes or in the checkout aspects of it. So the size of the store is it's largely a function of how much merch and how they want to display it in these stores, which is great, because it then gives people tons of flexibility.
Really? So let me make sure I read between the lines there correctly for our audience too. So you're saying that the introduction of RFID into the Just Walk Out capability expands the footprint size that you can deploy the Just Walk Out system to?
Can go to whatever footprint sizes. You've seen this from 200 square foot stores to 40,000 square foot stores.
Right.
So that part is its own dimension. I was talking about the fact that the extent to which you want to flex or reduce the size of it is no longer gated by I got to get plumbing.
You don't have fixture limitations.
I got to get a cooler in, and I got to put a cooler in this, and a cooler requires a certain amount of code or permitting or any of that. Like, this is a much easier, lightweight process. So it allows you to be able to create stores. It allows you to be able to create more temporary things that don't need to necessarily even persist. And you can sort of flex. You have a big event happening, have a bigger store. You have a small event happening, have a smaller store.
And for a merchant, that's key. I mean, that's key, especially an apparel merchant.
It's also super important in the sense that you can sort of choose these at various locations. You don't have to sort of say that, hey, there's only certain locations that are designated for food and beverage. You could have it anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could have this outside the stadium if you want to.
Right. That's interesting. Oh, go ahead, Dilip. Yeah.
No, that's it. That's what I meant. It's like this could be in a variety of different locations.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you too, because, we were talking to you a little bit before this interview too. So I wanted to get your thought. You've said that is eliminating lines still the inspiration for where you think about deploying this? Am I reading you right? Is that still the main source of where you guys decide or try to license this technology next?
It is the place where there is the greatest amount of correlation to both merchant satisfaction and customer satisfaction.
Okay.
Like I always tell people this, that, Just Walk Out it's not a demand generation machine. It's like a throughput.
Right.
Like reducing.
So that's important. Yeah.
Thing, right? Like it's not going to sort of like if your store is not generating any demand, this is not going to somehow magically get more people to the store. Like that's just magic. This is a different kind of magic, which says that like no matter what the size of the lines are, one of the things that tends to happen is that, and like all savvy retailers know this, is this notion of like as stores get more crowded, they wick away more traffic. Like people see crowded stores and they're like, I'm not going to go in. Like I'd rather, I'll find some other place. And so that in and of itself sheds demand even before you get in. So like the lost sales isn't just people coming in and abandoning, it's people even choosing not to come in. Right. And so when you sort of, one of the things that I like, it took us a while to realize this, it shouldn't have, but like it's the insight for me was that the number of people in the store is no longer a determinant of how long you spend in the store as a consumer.
Right.
So as a consumer, like if you are always guaranteed, because that is literally the effect of sort of reducing this notion of time anxiety. If you can eliminate people, and like different people they're on this scale of time anxiety. Everybody has some degree I have more time anxiety in airports, less in stadiums, other kinds of things. So like there's different things, and like we're all built differently, but we all have some amount of time anxiety. And the idea is that like if you can guarantee exactly how much time you want to spend, and it is not at all related to the number of people that are there in the store, that is incredibly liberating.
Yeah. This is
and
so
that
good.
To me is very, very, very useful.
Such good stuff. Oh my God. I mean, like the applications, with like flagship stores and like busy New York and crowded tourist attractions, that kind of thing comes into play. But Anne, what you
I mean, just eliminating, I think, some of the confines to putting this technology in a store that are starting to just get chipped away at here, Dilip, with everything that you're doing, like introducing RFID as a component so that you can expand this to apparel. Now being able to expand the footprint because you have other technologies in play here too. And I think, again, like just the applications that we got to earlier with Amazon One and being able to use that as not only a way to personalize the experience in some cases, but also as a big component of some of the theft deterrent that we know a lot of retailers are starting to invest in here. The single point of entry and single point of exit, especially in some of these stadium environments that do get very packed too. Like, it's so interesting to see how you're kind of, like I said, chipping away at each one of these areas of friction for consumers and for retailers.
Yeah.
All right, so let's expand out now. So we talked about Just Walk Out technology and how you guys have like looked at doing it in apparel now, particularly from the fan gear experiences. So the question now is like, where does it go next? Like, what do you see as the next opportunities? Is it campuses? Is it more airports? Like, how are you guys thinking about that?
So one of the things that we've always been amazed at is the types of use cases and the kinds of things that people are coming to us for. It's, we had the idea of like, we started off with convenience and then we went into stadiums and airports. And then that is sort of morphed into universities. Some that's morphed into like, convention centers. Like there's people like, it's super interesting to see.
It makes sense though, when you get down to it.
It's like, it is the one thing that I've noticed is that, consumers everywhere, and I've seen this happen with like technologies in general, is that people feel that, oh, this is a niche that is only applicable for certain kinds of things. And then they get social proof that, or they try it themselves. And then they find that, oh, these things are actually useful for these types of use cases. And like the general belief that I have is that time poverty is increasing. I don't think people have more time now than they're like. There's a few things that have been like reasonably durable in the sense that people are getting increasingly time constrained. They are more time constrained now than they were 5 years ago. There's going to be more time constrained 5 years from now.
Yeah.
And you know and as a result of it, the ability for point of sales are excellent at a variety of different things, but they're not really good for handling these these flexing up and down. It is effectively the best equivalent I can sort of think about is that it is the closest analogy I can think of the cloud and the ability to be able to sort of like elastically scale so that to handle your demand without necessarily wicking away any of that. And so the more we can sort of think and learn from what the cloud has taught us about how to sort of handle these kinds of things, what makes sense for merchants, there's tons of applicability in physical spaces. And so some of these are things that we're sort of going after. Some of these our customers are reaching out to us saying that, there's this use case. Have you considered this particular use case? And not all use cases are equivalent, but they're all very intriguing in the sense that it's indicating that folks are, getting more and more comfortable with this type of an experience, and I can see that happening now. I can see that like there's it's kind of interesting where you put certain thing in a university in one place, and then someone goes to some other place in a university and they don't find it in that other location, and then they wonder why they didn't have it in this. And so they're sort of we're getting complaints from students through the university back to us saying, why that dorm and why not this dorm? Which is perfect. Like, I mean, this is like, I don't want to create dorm.
They're making the case for you.
We're sort of equal opportunity for all dorms, but like there's the thing. It's good. It's great. It's awesome.
Well, like we always say when we go around the country too, we say once you go, you never go back. But I mean, what you just said, because I want to make sure the audience hears it too. There's some pretty big gold in what you just said too, because you talked about the point of sale being the limiting factor that you can't scale up or scale down based in terms of the hardware or the infrastructure that you're building in a physical retail operation in terms of how many cash wraps you want to have, right? But that's only one element that bottlenecks it too, because you also have the staffing side of it too, which is also a very much an increasing problem for most of retail right now. So you've got two factors that limit your ability to scale to your traffic demand. And you're saying that this solution or these ideas that we're talking about here on this show effectively, ameliorate that. Am I hearing that right?
Well, the point of sale, like the staffing one, those things tend to sort of ebb and flow, right? Like there's always been periods where staffing is tight, and then there's plenty of staffing, and staffing is tight, and plenty of staffing, and like retail cycles tend to happen.
Yeah,
I think with the point of sales, I mean, we may be in a cycle where staffing is tight, but maybe like 5 years ago or 5 years from now, it may or may not necessarily be. I think with things like point of sale and other kinds of the traditional way of shopping, though all of those occupy space. And when you're thinking about retailers live and die by the amount of productive space that they can use and utilize in this. And so if you can say that you're not sort of necessarily reducing or you're increasing your throughput while increasing your sellable space, it's a double win for them. So like it's a combination of both.
Right.
Well, Dilip, I want to go into the One Palm Pay because I am a huge fan. You guys have made some pretty big announcements recently too about other types of applications outside of just retail, particularly the Crunch Fitness one, which I'm having owned gyms. I wish so much that we had this capability available for the last 10 years that we were running these. But tell us a little bit more about like where One Palm Pay is right now and where you see it going as we kind of head into 2024.
Yeah, so we've been thrilled with the way that Amazon One is increasing. It's with something like this, our original idea, like a lot of folks think of this as predominantly a payment mechanism. And while a payment mechanism for that is super important, our original intent with this, and it still continues, is that it's a way for us to be able to figure out, offline or physical spaces identity. Right. So if you think about our daily lives, like we are we're effectively, without realizing it, because we're so conditioned to this, is that we're identifying ourselves in many different ways using multiple different form factors. You go to a gym and you use a fob. You use a different fob for your parking garage. You use some other way to be able to enter your
Your
corporate
apartment.
access for your
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
Or
Your job.
there's a different identifier for loyalty. There is a different identifier for age, to be able to sort of verify your age. So in a lot of these cases, the things that we were sort of triangulating to is that what is the one thing that you always have on yourself that you can then choose to, when you want to, so that you're always in control, identify yourself. And a subset of those use cases will translate into payment as well. So, you could have an age verification use case where you could, we did this in Coors Field, where it is, for alcohol purchases. You could do age verification, but then it also substitutes as payment. You go to Whole Foods and it connects to your loyalty. While it's doing payment, it also connects to your loyalty. So there isn't that duplication. And Crunch, it could be used for, entry. We did the same thing with Access for stadiums. It's a great use case for us to be able to connect a ticket to entry. In all of these use cases, the common thing is it starts off with physical identity and us forming a simple, easy, very intuitive way for people to be able to identify themselves when they want to. And then and these use cases will vary a lot, right? Like the idea is that the benefit of something like this accrues when you're using this in many different places, so it just becomes habit. If you use it at your Whole Foods, and you use it at your gym, and you use it at the myriad touch points that you have, then it sort of says that, oh, like, of course I'm just going to use this because I just have it. It's just the way of it. So that's the way that we've been thinking about it.
And Dilip, I have to ask too. I think it's the greatest thing that's ever happened.
You love it.
I want it to use it. I want everything, my license, my passport, my, every method of payment that I have to be put on my palm.
But wallpaper your house with it, Ann.
If that were a possibility, yes, I would, Chris. But I'm just curious, like what does the adoption of right now of One Palm look like? Like, and what kind of, if any, do you think hurdles it still has to get over before people are going to start using it all the time? Because I'm ready and willing, but I know that there's certainly some people out there who are still a little skeptical.
One of the things that Amazon takes a lot of pride in, and we've sort of worked very hard for that, is, we take, as I said, we take privacy and security very seriously. But at the same time, we also feel like eliminating, even like removing a little bit of friction over multiple instances tends to sort of add up. And people appreciate it for it. And with, it's, when biometrics initially sort of came out, like, people had varying degrees of reaction to using, fingerprints on their iPhone, or using, Face ID and other kinds of stuff. But like, now you see this in some of these things in airports, and these things will happen over a period of time, and it is natural. And it isn't something that you can, force and turn a switch overnight to do it. But one of the things that we tend to do is that we have to find use cases where the operators who are using this find utility in it. And when they find utility in it, and the customer adoption tends to follow. And then, like, if their customers are asking, like, there's customers who go in and ask. There were customers who were going in and asking Whole Foods and locations as we were rolling it out, because when they had traveled, they'd used it in a different location, and they went, and their location didn't have it, so they were wondering when it was coming. And those are all positive indications. They're small but positive indications that there is a demand for it. Is it the entire population is going to start using it overnight? No, but at the same time, it is. I'm pleased to see how this thing is evolving, especially for very different sets of use cases.
Well, and it's even more secure. Like, that's the thing. Like, no one's going to take my palm. That palm is tied to my payment. It's not like handing a credit card over something. So
exactly.
I totally get what you're saying. Like, I think consumer adoption will get there. It's just a matter of, like you said, using it more frequently and in more.
By the way, one of the other positive signs is this, like, when people use it, 75-80% of people stick with that.
Yeah, I remember you said that last
form.
time. Yeah.
of identification rather than switching to something else. Like in every location, you always have the ability to go back to use something else or switch to using a credit card or some other form of payment or some other form of identification. The fact that people are choosing to use it, the first time you can be like, you're going to try, but the second time you use it and the third time you use it, those are all like very positive indications that this is something that is resonating
Right.
with them, and that they are finding utility out of it, which we think is positive as well. It's something that we track, it's like how often are people repeat using
for sure
this, which is it's one leading indicator for that you may be onto something.
It's an interesting thought exercise for me too, in terms of like, which one would I not want to forego, just walk out or Palm Pay? Like, I actually don't know the answer to that. I don't think I want to say right now. I don't want to go on record, but it's an interesting thought exercise to think about, because I wouldn't want to give up either one now that I know, having tried both of them. I know, Ann, you feel the same way. All right, well, before we let you go, I'm curious, is there anything that Ann and I have not asked you about that you would like our retail executive audience to know?
No, I think one of the things that I wanted to sort of end this note with is there's a lot of talk of the macroeconomic climate and how people are. There's these ebbs and flows, and one of the things that, like, in so many conversations with so many customers that I've had, the constant theme that seems to come about is that companies might be facing macroeconomic climate changes and stuff like that, but their consumer expectations haven't reduced.
No.
Consumer expectation hasn't changed to say that I still want things happen quickly. I still want convenience. I still want this at the lowest cost. And so they themselves, and so like a lot of these things are, we're in the business, are the way that if you think about AWS, is one of the core tenets of how we price and do these things is, we make money when the retailers make money. So like our pricing and other kinds of things are highly linked to usage. So like we don't get utility out of it until people actually use it. And that resonates really well, because you don't have like these, per expensive, like user type licenses, which sometimes get used, sometimes don't get used. And so this is where I feel like several things that Amazon has done, or several things that AWS has done, is focus from the consumer and work backwards from the customer, where the customer could be the end customer, or it could be people buying your services. Is that you have to align yourself no matter what the economic conditions are, because if you build the right thing that end customers want, and if you sort of align yourself with the right pricing approach, more than one person in this sort of ecosystem tends to get utility out of it. So, and that cycle is sort of repeating itself, which I think is super interesting, having been through multiple challenging macroeconomic conditions, if you will.
Yeah, and you're setting a new customer behavior that, once we start to see this in our stadiums, in our grocery stores, in our QSR experiences, we're going to start to expect this from other retailers in that space too. I mean, the convenience is something that, like you said, we're time starved now. We will be more time starved in the future. So I think this is just another, for me, hearing you talk about this, Dilip, is just kind of showing us as retailers and in the retail audience really what to expect, or what the consumer expectations are going to be for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, it's a great note to end on too. I mean, it's the universal use of Amazon. Like, it's a great note to bring up here to close us out. So, well, Dilip, thank you so much. That was awesome as always, and I love that. Did you love that?
I know. I absolutely love talking to you every time, Dilip. Now I want your team to get tasked on eliminating the lines at stadiums for the women's bathroom. So if you can figure out at Amazon how to just make that your next priority, we've got our beer, we've got our hot dogs, we've got our fan merch. Now the women's bathroom line. Get on that one.
That's funny.
If anyone can solve it, Dilip, you and your team.
I have to say that is a challenge. I haven't seen the lines in stadiums. You're like, that's not nothing to sneer at. Like it's the real thing.
That's harder than autonomous driving. Oh my God.
That's right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, hey, thanks to Amazon's Dilip Kumar, again, the VP of AWS applications at Amazon, or as we like to call him, one of the Omni stars at Amazon, making omnichannel retail happen better every day. Thanks again, Dilip. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.
And to everyone listening, as always, thanks for tuning in. And of course, be careful out there.